The phone rang at 2:47 a.m., shattering the silence of Min-jae's apartment. He reached for it blindly, his heart already racing before he even saw the unfamiliar number glowing on the screen. "Is this Kim Min-jae?" A woman's voice, professional but tired. "Yes, who?" "I'm calling from Seoul National University Hospital. You're listed in Amara Bennett's phone under emergency contacts. She's been admitted." Min-jae sat up, fully awake now. "What happened? Is she okay?" There was a pause, the kind that carries weight. "You should come. Room for 07, 4th floor." The nurse hung up before he could ask anything else. He threw on clothes, his hands shaking as he buttoned his shirt wrong twice. Amara. The woman who'd been in his life for 3 years, who'd quietly become the most constant thing he knew. The woman he kept meaning to talk to properly, to really see, but somehow never found the urgency. The hospital corridor smelled of disinfectant and desperation. Min-jae's shoes squeaked against the linoleum as he rushed toward room 407, his mind racing through possibilities. An accident. Food poisoning. Something fixable, something temporary. But when he pushed open the door, the machine surrounding her bed told a different story. Amara lay there, her dark skin ashen against the white sheets, tubes running from her arms. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow and mechanical. A different nurse was adjusting an 4 drip, and she looked up when Min-jae entered. "Are you family?" she asked. Min-jae opened his mouth but no sound came out. "Family." The word hung in the air like an accusation. He'd known Amara for years, had shared countless meals with her, had fallen asleep to the sound of her voice more times than he could count. But family? We're. He couldn't finish. The nurse's expression softened with something that looked like pity. "The doctor will be in shortly to explain her condition. You can sit with her." Min-jae moved to the chair beside the bed as if in a dream. He took Amara's hand, and it felt smaller than he remembered, fragile. When had she become so fragile? "Mr. Kim." A doctor entered, clipboard in hand, her face carefully neutral. "I'm Dr. Park. I need to ask, how much did Ms. Bennett tell you about her diagnosis?" Diagnosis. The word felt foreign in his mouth. Dr. Park's eyebrows raised slightly. "She didn't tell you she was sick?" "Sick? No, she's been tired lately, but..." Min-jae's voice trailed off as memories began clicking into place like puzzle pieces he'd been too blind to see. The doctor sat down, and Min-jae knew from her body language that whatever came next would change everything. "Ms. Bennett has stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She was diagnosed 6 months ago. She's been undergoing treatment, but..." Dr. Park paused, choosing her words carefully. "She collapsed at home this evening. Her neighbor called the ambulance. According to her medical records, she declined aggressive treatment options. She's been managing pain, but the cancer has progressed significantly. 6 months. The words echoed in Min-jae's head. 6 months of Amara knowing, carrying this alone, and he'd noticed nothing. No, that wasn't true. He'd noticed things, but he dismissed them, assumed they were temporary, told himself she'd talk when she was ready. "How long does she have?" His voice cracked. "It's hard to say. Days, maybe a week if she responds well to the current treatment." "I'm sorry." After the doctor left, Min-jae sat in the silent room, holding Amara's hand, and let himself remember. Really remember. 3 months ago, Amara had started giving things away. Her favorite scarf, the one she'd worn constantly, she'd draped around his mother's shoulders during a visit, insisting she keep it. "It looks better on her," Amara had said with that quiet smile of hers. "Besides, I want her to have something of mine." He'd thought it was just generosity, not farewell. 2 months ago, she'd asked him to take more pictures. Not selfies or posed shots, just ordinary moments. Him making coffee in the morning. Them walking through Namsan Park. His hands holding a book she'd given him. Why so many photos? He'd asked, slightly annoyed at having to stop and pose. I just want to remember, she'd said softly. Is that okay? He shrugged, not understanding that she was creating memories for him to keep, not her. 6 weeks ago, on an unremarkable Tuesday evening, they'd been sitting on his couch watching a drama when she'd turned to him suddenly. Min-jae, if I disappeared tomorrow, what would you remember about me? He'd laughed, not looking away from the screen. What kind of question is that? You're not going anywhere. But if I did, what would you remember? He'd finally looked at her then, saw something urgent in her dark eyes, but he'd misread it as insecurity. Everything, he'd said, reaching over to squeeze her hand before turning back to the TV. I'd remember everything. Don't be weird. She'd gone quiet after that, and he'd thought he'd reassured her. Now he understood she'd been asking him to pay attention while she was still there, to see her before it was too late. And he'd dismissed her. The worst memory came flooding back now, sharp and cutting. It had been 3 weeks ago, their last real conversation. Amara had come to his apartment, and he'd noticed immediately that something was different. She looked exhausted, a usually vibrant energy dimmed to something fragile. We need to talk, she'd said, sitting on the edge of his couch like she might bolt at any moment. Okay. He'd been distracted, half watching a football match on his phone. Min-jae, please look at me. The urgency in her voice had made him put the phone down, but he'd felt annoyed, like she was being dramatic. I'm looking. What's wrong? Do you love me? She'd asked. What? Of course I do. Why are you asking me this? Because I need to know if you're here because you want to be, or because it's comfortable. Because I need honesty, not habit. He'd felt his defenses rise. Where is this coming from? We're fine. Everything's fine. Is it? Her voice had cracked slightly. When was the last time we really talked? When was the last time you asked me how I was and waited for a real answer? You're being dramatic. If something was wrong, you'd tell me, right? That's what people in relationships do. She'd looked at him for a long moment, and he'd seen something break behind her eyes. You're right. That is what people do. Then she'd said something that had irritated him at the time, but now cut through him like glass. You're acting like we have all the time in the world. Don't we? He'd shot back, his tone sharper than intended. What's this really about, Amara? You're acting like you're running out of time or something. She'd flinched. Actually physically flinched. And then she'd gone very still, very quiet. You're right, she'd said softly, standing up. I should go. Amara, wait. No, you're busy. We'll talk later. But they hadn't talked later. She'd pulled away after that, cancelling plans, responding to texts with brief messages. He'd told himself she was being moody, that she'd come around. He'd never once considered that she was dying, and he'd just told her she was being dramatic about it. The door opened, pulling Min-jae from his memories. The first nurse from earlier entered, carrying a manila envelope and a small box. Ms. Bennett left instructions, she said gently. In case, well, she wanted you to have these. Min-jae took them with trembling hands. Inside the envelope was a letter, and in the box was Amara's phone and a small USB drive. He unfolded the letter, and her handwriting, elegant and careful, blurred through his tears. Min-jae. If you're reading this, it means I couldn't find the words while I was awake. Or maybe I found them, and you weren't ready to hear them. Either way, you know now. I was diagnosed 6 months ago. Stage 4. Terminal. I know you'll be angry that I didn't tell you, and you have every right to be. But I need you to understand why. I didn't want to be loved because I was dying. I didn't want your guilt, your pity, or your obligation. I wanted what we had, for as long as we could have it. I wanted you to choose me because you loved me, not because you were afraid of losing me. But I was also a coward. I was terrified that if you knew, you'd look at me differently. That every conversation would become heavy with the weight of goodbye. That you'd see death instead of me.
Do you remember when you said I was acting like I was running out of time?
You were right. I was. I am. But I didn't want you to know that. I wanted to pretend, just a little longer, that we were normal. That tomorrow was guaranteed. The voice notes on the USB drive, listen to them when you're ready. Not all at once. Space them out. Let me keep you company even after I can't anymore. I'm not angry with you, Min-jae. I never was. You loved me the way you knew how, and most days, that was enough. I just wish I'd been braver. I wish I demanded more of your time, your presence, your attention while I had the chance. Don't carry guilt. Carry forward. Live deliberately. Love urgently. Don't assume tomorrow exists. If someone keeps asking for your time, maybe it's because time is all they have left. I loved you. Even in the silence. Especially in the silence. Amara. Min-jae's hand shook so badly he almost dropped the letter. He wanted to scream, to throw something, to rewind time and do everything differently. Instead, he carefully folded the letter and picked up Amara's phone. It unlocked with her Face ID, still active, and he saw she'd left the voice memo app open. Dozens of recordings, all dated, all titled with simple messages, for when you're sad, for your birthday, for when you forget my voice, for when you need courage. He scrolled to the earliest one, dated 6 months ago, right after her diagnosis. With trembling fingers, he pressed play. Hi. Amara's voice filled the room, and Min-jae's breath caught. She sounded tired but alive, so impossibly alive. I don't know if you'll ever hear this. I hope you don't have to. But just in case. I wanted you to know that loving you was the easiest thing I ever did. Even now, even knowing what I know, I don't regret a single moment. You made me laugh on my darkest days. You made me feel beautiful when I felt like I was breaking. You were my normal in a world that suddenly became anything but. There was a long pause, and he heard her breathing, gathering courage. I'm scared, Min-jae. I'm so scared. Not of dying, that part feels abstract somehow. But of leaving you. Of all the tomorrows we won't have. Of never knowing how your story ends. I'm scared you'll forget my laugh, the way I take my coffee, how I always steal your hoodies even though they're too big. Another pause, then a soft, sad laugh. I'm making these recordings because I'm selfish. Because I want to leave pieces of myself behind, breadcrumbs of my voice for you to follow when the silence gets too loud. Is that wrong? Probably. But I'm doing it anyway. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. I love you. I'll love you in every tomorrow I don't get to see. And if there's anything after this, I'll love you there too. But right now, I need you to do something for me. I need you to live. Really live. Not just exist, not just go through motions. Feel everything. Risk everything. Don't wait for perfect moments because perfect doesn't exist. Just be present. That's all any of us really have. The recording ended. Min-jae sat in the hospital room, holding the phone like a lifeline, and finally understood. Amara hadn't been pulling away. She'd been protecting him, giving him the gift of ignorance while simultaneously begging him to wake up and see her. And he'd been too comfortable, too certain of tomorrow, to notice. He looked at her now, really looked at her, and saw all the signs he'd missed. The weight loss. The exhaustion that no amount of sleep fixed. The way she'd started documenting everything, pressing flowers between book pages, recording mundane conversations, photographing empty coffee cups and unmade beds. She'd been saying goodbye the entire time, in 100 small ways, and he'd heard none of it. I'm sorry, he whispered, bringing her hand to his lips. I'm so sorry I didn't see you. I'm sorry I waited. I'm sorry I thought we had time. As dawn broke through the hospital window, painting the room in shades of pink and gold, Min-jae made a promise. To listen to every voice note. To remember everything. To live with the urgency she'd tried to teach him. To never again assume tomorrow was guaranteed. Amara passed away 3 days later, on a quiet morning while Min-jae held her hand and told her stories about their future, the one they'd never have. He talked about the apartment they'd never buy, the trips they'd never take, the ordinary Tuesdays they'd never share. He gave her the tomorrow they'd been robbed of, in words if not in reality. By the time he understood her, truly understood her, she was gone. And understanding her was the part he couldn't survive. But he would try. For her. Because she'd asked him to live, and loving her meant honoring that request, even when living felt impossible. In the weeks that followed, Min-jae would share Amara's story, hoping that someone, somewhere, would hear it and choose differently. Would choose urgency over comfort. Presence over assumption. Would look at the people they loved and really see them, before time made that impossible. If someone keeps asking for your time, maybe it's because time is all they have left. Don't wait to understand. Don't assume tomorrow exists. Love like you're running out of time, because maybe, just maybe, you are. If this story moved you, if it made you think about someone you've been taking for granted, share it. Comment below with who you're going to call today. Subscribe for more stories that remind us what really matters. Because the only thing worse than losing someone is realizing you never truly saw them while they were there.